What's up, reefers? Welcome
What's
to
happening?
Real Reef Talk 2025. The first, or not the first, because Mark did it, but like the
Mark,
second 24-hour live stream. How is everyone doing today?
dude, I'm doing great. I got energized with a good night's sleep, and I've been up since what 9:30, just like antsy, ready to rock and roll. We got a freaking amazing group of guests coming on today. We're gonna have a blast, dude. I can't wait to get this rolling.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good. We've got a super solid group of guests. Hopefully, we've got the energy still for the overseas people, because those are good conversations, but I don't want to fall asleep during them. That's the real double-edged sword of doing this.
I got my methods. I got my ways. I'm gonna make it through with no issues. I might be a little groggy and a little delirious towards the end, but it's going to happen. Let's just get this done. Let's do it.
I've got 4 white monsters. I think that'll do it. Hopefully, I don't have a heart attack in the middle of this.
I drank the craziest jet fuel coffee I ever made. Our Keurig broke, so I'm like, shit, how am I gonna make some coffee this morning? So I got this old French style percolator out, and you pack in so much. It's like making espresso out of regular coffee beans. And I brewed it up and I poured my first cup, and I'm like, oh hell no, I can't drink that. And I had to water it halfway down. I think I drank 3 cups of that. So I'm about ready to rock and roll.
Oh my God. Okay. So I think before we get started here, so one important note is share this on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, I don't think your comments will show up unless you're like actually a business page, because I fail Gen Z and I don't understand technology either. I'm a terrible representation of my generation. So, but if you're on YouTube, we can see your comments super easy. So if you're on Facebook commenting, we can't see it. We're not ignoring you. It's simply how the program works. So I'd say go watch it on YouTube if you can. Share it on Facebook, though, and that would help us a lot. Share it on Instagram. Share it everywhere. We're going to be putting our links in. We don't have super chats because these are new channels. So we're not monetized. YouTube hates us. So I've got a link I'll put below where you can donate, you can buy merchandise, and help support this whole thing. I think we should get started. So, yeah, last time Chris and I did this, we were answering user questions for the first hour as kind of an intro. So I think if you've got questions or want to talk about anything, now is the time, and Chris and I can begin answering those questions. I've been on nutrients lately. That's been my obsession.
Oh, nutrients. Yeah, dude, I've been playing. I mean, I'm on everything though. I'm all over the place. My scatterbrain can't focus on one particular thing. So nutrients definitely has been something that we've been playing around with. And, I talked to you, Kenny, with the probiotic, the PNS probiotic that we're using, the Palostris.
Yep.
Pretty amazing stuff what we're seeing there. Dude, we got so many awesome topics that we're going to be talking about during this entire 24-hour stream. I don't know. What are you looking forward to the most?
I don't know, man, because like all of them are people I've wanted to talk to. So like this was a list of like, here's everyone I have a conversation with. I think that the overseas ones are going to be cool. So like I'm excited to talk to Matthew from South Africa. Yeah. I'm excited to talk to Ayman and Tony representing Dubai in the Middle East. That'll be a cool one. Vincent, I've not got to talk to Vincent ever, so that'll be a cool one.
Dude, he's doing some amazing things over in Indonesia, man. I mean, I remember being part of the first Ocean Gardener paid tour where I was in 2018 when he launched it, and 2 Aussies came over, Emma and Zach, and we got to go out, and I went out diving on the reef and collecting some corals while these guys were learning the course on how to mariculture corals, and that was really cool. And now what he's doing with the whole restoration and outplanting corals and showing the progress, it's going to be all about Ocean Gardener and all about the amazing things that Vincent's doing all over Indonesia. That's going to be a really good chat. I don't know. I can't really pinpoint down personally which one's going to be my, I'm looking forward to the most, because I'm looking forward to all of them, with the flow discussion with
Felix Tunzi. Yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah. It's going to be awesome. I mean, Tunzi's were the first wave pumps that I knew of back in the early 2000s that were like, workhorses. They had some poof to them, and seeing an SPS tank that we tore down many, many years ago, 20 years ago, that had Tunzi's on it with, what were they? Sea swirls.
Oh, yeah.
They had 4 sea swirls with Tunzi pumps, and that tank was just ridiculous. The talk with Tulio and Luco on lighting is going to be badass. I mean, there's so much content going to come out of this. And it's just, you know, it's 100% talking about reefing. I mean, talking about what we love, what we enjoy, and just, you know, questions welcome. You know, we're going to have an amazing time.
Yeah, I'm excited. So for both Felix and Luca and Tulio's, I think there's going to be some new products talked about in all of those, or even shown on
That's
camera.
cool.
So there might be some product announcements and discussions, which will be pretty cool from what I hear. And then, yeah, I think so. You know, usually in the content that I've made, it's been like way too much science, way too much nerd out about coral. And I'm excited to talk to Lyle from Cans Marine because we're gonna have a fish conversation. So I feel that
100%.
we've done a good job of trying to get all aspects of what makes this hobby great and something for everyone on this. So
And dude,
yeah.
we had a list of people that was a mile long, and we had to narrow it down, and that was not an easy task. But dude, I can't believe we put this together in 2.5 weeks, bro. I mean, 2.5 weeks, and we got everybody lined up. Just hope there's no hiccups and everybody remembers their times, because getting all these time zones correct was. Thank goodness for the app on your phone called the World Clock.
Yeah, here, hold up here. Ken, I invited you on Facebook to come on for 24 hours with us. So don't say that. I invited you, man. You could have rode with us. Oh man.
I didn't see, what comment was that? I didn't see anything pop up.
Saltwateraquarium.com said I didn't get the invite.
Uh,
I
hey,
said, no, you
we're not,
did.
this isn't the only time something like this is going to happen. You know, we're gonna try to you know, really stir up the reefing world with this, something, you know, either annually or biannually. Salem.
I think
It's
we
going
need
to
to
be.
do one for Christmas time.
You know, I think you're exactly right. I mean, I think we need to, you know, keep this going, make it a tradition, you know, twice a year. And then in between, you know, we can have, you know, whatever we want to do in between, which is going to be a lot of fun.
I think so. It looks like we have our first question here from Richard Colombo. It's for you, Chris. So, what are your thoughts, Chris, on sand versus no sand, or no rock versus rock? Do you think that these things are necessary for bacterial surface area and nooks for microfauna?
um, Rock, no rock. Say that one more time. Oh,
Rock,
it's right
no
here.
sand, yes, no, rock, yes, no.
I think that sand is definitely something that is a good thing for your system. Um, I don't think that no rock is a good idea. I mean, you know, the sand is definitely important because you get a lot of microfauna living in the sand. Plus, you get all the creepy critters and stuff like that that are beneficial for your system. Personally, we don't run sand in our systems because it's just a big commercial setup, and it's, you know, keeping the sand clean would be nearly impossible. But for a hobbyist, you know, when I set up my office tank, it's going to have like a 2-inch deep sand bed in it, because I want to put my acanthos down there. I want to put my trackies and, you know, all the sand dwelling corals. And that's something else I can't wait to talk about that, you know, down the road during this live broadcast about, you know, is sand important? You know, do you know, certain corals that people think need to go in the sand that really shouldn't be in the sand? That's going to be an interesting topic to let people know. You know, I can't wait to have Don Gilson on to talk about corals and where they're found and where they're collected in the wild, so that people can get a better understanding about it. But I mean, surface area for bacteria, I think that, you know, Jake and I talked about this 100 times. You know, minimal amount of surface area for with rock is all that's really needed. I mean, if you want extra surface area for in your system, put it in your sump and just make your rockscape look like you want your tank to look, because the surface area is your entire system, not just your rock. You know, the glass that'll hold, the coralline algae will hold bacteria, the pipes will hold bacteria. You know, every aspect of surface area in your system is porous for the most part. And you know, so bottom line, I think that sand is important in a hobbyist tank. It's not a necessity. But having a remote sand bed in your sump or somewhere is definitely a good idea. I mean, 100%.
You just want to make sure to clean it for sure. Like I had a remote sand bed in my farm system and I didn't touch it, and it became just like a DOC factory. Like after a long time, like I finally took it out, and the amount of detritus, it made like Kinney from Pieces of the Ocean's detritus layer looked like nothing pretty much. It was like, it was bad, man. It was a bomb. But yeah, I think something else to think about with surface area is it's not just surface area. You have to think about what type of bacteria do you actually want to be growing. Because surface area with a different amount of oxygen or a different amount of light or a different amount of localized nutrients is all going to be a different little microhabitat to grow different bacteria. So like a good example of this, if with my new sump, if I have bio balls and it's just super aerated and heavy, that's going to grow aerobic bacteria, nitrifiers, heterotrophs. But if I have something like a deep sand bed, that's going to have no oxygen and grow a completely different subset of bacteria that does something different for your tank. So I think it's this thing of like, we just need surface area is kind of like, it's an oversimplification. You need the right surface area for the job. You want denitrification, you got a ton of fish, do a deep sand bed, do like an anaerobic reactor. If you want, DOC to go down and you want a bunch of nitrifiers, do like do bio balls, do a trickle filter. I mean, do a bio pellet reactor, whatever. I mean, it's complicated, but yeah.
That's a very important, I think a very, very important point that you brought up is, the surface area for like bio balls and trickle type filters. It's something that we used to use back in the day, 20, 30 years ago. Trickle filters were important, but then we had such nutrient issues that we got away from the trickle filters because they're a nitrate factory. And we ended up now we're to the point where the technology and all the different things that we have available to us have gotten us to the point where we're nutrient deficient. And we all know that for photosynthesis to take place, the balance of nutrients and light is super important. So instead of us dosing ammonia or nitrates to supplement for those nutrients, I think that it's because of what we've done in the hobby and how far we've advanced, I think we need to go back to the OG ways and go with trickle filters, because why wouldn't we want to produce nitrates the natural way versus adding a chemical like ammonia or nitrate, potassium nitrate, calcium nitrate, whatever we add to get that nutrient level that we need, when in reality, we're only getting the chemical form. We're not getting an organic form. And the organic form is way more important for the system to stay balanced. And, a trickle filter will do that for us. I mean, it doesn't have to be a big trickle filter. I mean, something small will do a great job.
Dosing urea is pretty awesome, I think.
Hey, I talked about that many, many, many years ago, and people thought I was nuts. And the people that did it were just like, wow, I can't believe my system cycled so good, and then they didn't get that mini cycle after they used, ammonium chloride. And then they put in, urea, and that mini cycle that happens after the initial cycle with chemical ammonia is gone. It disappears. Oh, yeah. So I always like to say, if you're going to use ammonia, ammonium chloride, even putting, you peel them shrimp, just go into the store, grab the shrimp, take the skin off and throw it in your tank. That gives you the organic nutrients that you're looking for. Or, I won't even say it, but,
it'll work. It'll work. There's a natural source of urea that everyone has access to that can certainly do good.
it's the most concentrated when you wake up in the morning.
Yeah. No, I think Bob Stark will probably go down this rabbit hole a lot longer because he loves the trickle filter idea. But trickle filters are probably pretty awesome. Like those bacteria they eat DOC, which causes all sorts of problems, and they convert it into organic nitrogen. It like completes the carbon loop and the nitrogen loop, and you have to dose nothing. You got to run no carbon. You can run no skimmer that way. So I'm going to have like 4 or 5 systems here, and I'm planning 2 right now. One's going to get wet next week, and it's going to have a trickle filter, and that's it. No sump or like no skimmer, just a trickle filter, return pump, heater. That's it. Maybe I'll run carbon sometimes. And then I'm going to run another system. I'm going to run the Triton method. I'm going to play with the super oversized Fuge high turnover rate thing because I've always wanted to. And I think there's a lot of experiments that can be done there. And I'm on the fence about a Fuge, so I want to see. I've done them before, but I've not done one that big before. So we'll see.
But Listen, I think refugiums are great for aquariums, but I think that they're misunderstood, and I don't think that the right information has ever been put out about a refugium and actually what they're capable of actually doing for your system. A small refugium is basically worthless, in my opinion, other than the
Yeah.
fact that you're going to get microfauna like copepods and amphipods and all kinds of different stuff that's going to be able to proliferate like crazy in there and help keep your help with the balance of your system. But when you think about the ocean and you think about the marshlands and the tidal areas near the shorelines, we need something that is almost the same size as our main system in order for it to do the right thing. I mean, if you want to do a refugium and you got a 300-gallon aquarium, you should probably have a good 150 to up to 300-gallon sump or bigger, because you got to have that surface area, and you should have a multitude of different types of algae growing in it. Chaetomorpha, in my opinion, doesn't do a damn thing for nutrients. I've never seen it actually in any of my systems, reduce the nutrient load that is being put into it. Then again, now I'm adding ammonia on a regular basis because I can't keep nutrients in the system, but I use algae scrubbers, which are extremely efficient for reducing nutrients in your system when it comes to phosphates, nitrates, and even silicates. But the problem with something like that is keeping the balance of your minor and trace elements, which is something that's very much overlooked. And with a refugium, you're going to get a lot of minor and trace reduction. And a lot of people think you can do a water change and you're going to replace those minor and traces. Well, if you're doing a 10% water change and you're at actual natural seawater in 10%, you boosted your minor and traces by 10%, which is minuscule and will be depleted out of your system so quickly that, the algae that are in there are going to suck it out. I mean, so point being is, if you're going to do a refugium, you got to do a big one. You're better off doing a small algae scrubber. I think a refugium and an algae scrubber would probably be the key, especially if you don't have the room to put a huge refugium on. Just put an algae scrubber on top of your refugium, if it's a remote or underneath your sump or underneath your tank, and that'll be way better than just a refugium on your system for sure.
I think scrubbers are evil and refugiums are maybe good.
Dude, I swear by scrubbers. I swear by my algae scrubbers. And something that was really, really interesting that we found out, my scrubbers are like 6 years old, and I have replacement lamps, and I replaced 2 on one scrubber when it was 4 of them on it. And my phosphates went from standing steady around 0.2 in that system to down to 0.08 just by changing 2 lamps out. And that happened in a 3-day period of time, where my algae was actually doing its job better than what it was before, because the LEDs that were on it had, after 5 years, they're basically, spent. And that's pretty much any LED. And these things were running 24/7 for, 6 years, 7 years. And just replacing 2 lamps made such a world of difference in how that scrubber was performing. And honestly, it saved me. Oh my gosh, we used to have 2 people daily, all week long, scrubbing algae off the plugs, off the rocks, off the walls, and the scrubbers eliminated that. It took like 3 months for them to actually do their job, but once they got dialed in, man, it was like, oh my gosh, there's 2 people. The labor that we saved just by putting an algae scrubber on our system was just mind blowing.
So here's I have no doubt that algae scrubbers can outcompete algae, can lower your nutrients. What I'm thinking, though, which you might not experience, is because you have such a large water volume. So the amount of algae compared to the water volume is you get like a huge ratio there. But if I've got like a 50-gallon tank with a big ass algae scrubber, think about, at least in terms of science, turf algae produces so much nasty stuff that just completely screws with corals. Like a lot of inhibitory compounds mess with settling, causes disease, it slows down their growth. So I think in a smaller system, if you're not adding just a carbon or ozone constantly, you're probably not taking those things out, and it could have a negative effect. Whereas with fuges, it doesn't seem like those macroalgae species do that like turf algae would. But I think in your system, it's so big, you might not be seeing those. So you just see the benefits. I think it's a water volume. Like, is it diluting out the bad stuff that turf algae makes, so to speak? I don't know.
That was the thing that, when I was talking to the guy that produced these things, we got the commercial, which is basically 2 Clearwater Scrubber 300s. And we thought that we needed even more than that on the system. And, we learned real quickly that, just that on 2,500 gallons, and it's, he had them rated at, a 300, a Clearwater 300 was good for up to, a 600 gallon system. Well, in reality, that 300 is actually probably more like good for 1,000 gallons or more. And actually it makes sense because we have just a 300 on our 1,700 gallon, one of our 1,700 gallon farms. And I have nutrient, my nitrogen or nitrate level is something that I'm chasing now, but my phosphates have been dialed in at like 0.03 to 0.06. And that's just with a very small scrubber, but we clean it on a weekly basis. One side gets cleaned. And as long as you do maintenance on the thing, it's going to do what it needs to, what you need it to do. I won't take them off of any of my systems ever after the results that we got 6 years ago, and we started using them. It's just,
I'm sure it's saving you money. I'm just saying, I don't know if someone puts that 300 gallon rated system that's rated for 1,000 gallon on a 100 gallon tank because they think more is better. What the hell's happening? I don't know. Maybe nothing good.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, that's why you need to do your, due diligence and make sure that you're using the right size scrubber. They have the 50, the 100, and the 200 and the 300. The 50 is good for like a 100 gallon aquarium. The 100 is good for like a 300 gallon aquarium. The 200 is good for 600, and then the 300 is good for 1,000 plus. And of course, the great thing about a scrubber too, you don't have to run it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can put it on a reverse cycle and run it for 12 hours. So if you got one that's too big for your system, you just need to dial it in for how much light you need to run on the thing, so it's not over. It's not over extracting the nutrient levels and your minor and traces. But another big thing about the scrubbers is if you're not putting copper in your system on a regular basis, and people are like, oh my God, you can't do that. You have to put copper in your water, because if you don't, photosynthesis requires copper, and photosynthesis will still occur, but it won't do 100% what it's supposed to do without having all the proper elements available for it. So you'll still grow algae, but it's not going to remove the phosphates quickly. Yeah, it's not going to be as efficient. Yeah. So that was something that we learned in the very beginning, because for 6 months we were having all these great results, and then all of a sudden the results stopped. And that's when, Chris Wood, he's a guest coming on here this afternoon. Him and I started brainstorming about what to do. And, Captivate was just getting rolling. And we started doing this Isolate MT turf. So it was Isolate MT for turf scrubbers, and we had just boosted amounts of minor and traces in it, and then we reformulated that over and over and over until we just ended up with the Isolate MT, which is perfect for somebody using a scrubber. They can add that on a daily basis in very tiny amounts, and it'll help keep the levels that they need, so that their scrubber's doing the job it's supposed to, and your balance isn't being disrupted as much.
Yeah, copper is definitely one that's needed in a very minute amount, especially if you got a fuge or or a scrubber. But you have to be careful with it if you don't have those things, because it's uptaken very slowly by coral. So traces will be a whole other. We've got
so much
coming on. We've got Isan and Julian coming on, so we'll talk about traces a lot. Which I've been reading about traces the last week, and I've got some thoughts about some certain trace elements people are dosing. There's a couple more questions in the chat here because we've been rambling here. So let's get to those. So someone said catalytic carbon versus ROX. This is kind of like the moonshiners like Andre and Christoph determined through some testing that catalytic carbon, a certain brand of it, can absorb DOC and not really mess with the traces compared to other forms of carbon. So I've done a bunch of research on this, and I think I found the original manufacturer of Clearwater's carbon. And it looks like to me that carbon has larger pore sizes. And because it's catalytic, that means it breaks things down physically by actually interacting with it. So the catalytic portion of it is breaking things down, and those larger pore sizes seem to be able to attract those larger carbon chains compared to ions and stuff. So at least the head logic mind story of it makes sense, but also they have not made that data public. But also a lot of people have had success doing this and showing their results with DOC before and after. So I think it makes a lot of sense to maybe use catalytic carbon if you've got a DOC issue, but I think granular activated, like normal carbon, will do it too. Just probably need some more of it. And you might have to supplement your traces more if you're adding a shit ton of carbon.
Yeah, I use a lot of carbon. I mean, since we started using ozone, I go through every 2 weeks. I change the carbon out, and we're going through. I mean, hell, I just bought 550 pounds of this stuff because that'll last me like a year, changing it out on a regular basis. But it's like 2 to 3 gallons depending on the system of carbon going in, and I haven't noticed that it's been bothering and reducing the minor and traces. But I also have been doing changing out carbon for many years, and with dialing in the minor and traces over the last 5 years, that's kind of our concoction makes up for it. Yeah. Our concoction makes up for it. Weekly ICP tests for all those years have been a huge benefit for learning the process of what the systems do, and what the uptake is. And I don't even chase the numbers anymore, man. I know it's going in on a daily basis, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If I continue to chase, it's going to end up taking one money pit and trading it for another money pit, because I was like, I keep adding so much manganese. What the hell? I can't even get to show up. And I'm like, you know what? I'm done. This is my concoction. It's going in every day. I can care less if it shows up on the ICP, because I know it's getting in there. It's being utilized by the corals and by the bacteria and by everything else that's needing those minor and traces.
Dude, that's like it's like everyone's doing MS testing and dosing like parts per trillion of something, and it's like, dude, first off, I'm aware of no coral that has part per trillion sensitivity to a trace element. Like if it's 0.08 or 0.09, if it's in the water and it is bioavailable where they can eat it, that's good enough for me, man. It's a trend thing. It's if there's getting uptake. I think people are really obsessing about traces right now. And it's just, it's partial marketing, partial misinformation, partial, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think it really matters as long as it's not toxic and as long as it's available.
I think you're exactly right. I mean, this is the thing that I learned. And, Jake and I talked about this. He's like, dude, you're chasing numbers that are almost impossible to get dialed in a closed system. It's one thing for the ocean to be where it is, and they're going to fluctuate there too, depending on the region where you're getting water samples from. So I still said, no, I'm still chasing them. I'm still going to make it happen. And we had like a full month and a half of it being dialed in with no elevations, no deficiencies. And then all of a sudden it just started going all out of whack with deficiencies again. I'm like, I'm done. And you know what? That was the best thing I could have ever done, because everything's been dialed in since then. And I think it's very important for reefers that are playing around with this, do your ICP tests and try to dial them in as best as you possibly can. But once you get to the point where you got a concoction that's working and your corals look phenomenal, but you're still showing deficiencies on your ICP, you're putting them in your aquarium. And the ICPs might not ever show them up unless something catastrophic happens to your system where metabolism slows down in the system when they're not able to uptake it. And then you'll notice things that are climbing. But once you get your minor and traces dialed in where you're fairly satisfied with the doses that you're putting in, just stop chasing them and raising your levels, and know that you've got something going on that is good, and do a once a month ICP test to make sure that you're not getting elevated levels. So that way, because that's the biggest problem with minor and traces. If you set it and you forget it and then something gets elevated, well, that's something that's elevated could be very toxic when it gets elevated, and you could have a big wipeout. That's why the monthly ICP is super important to do when you're dosing minor and traces. Once a month is a must, in my opinion. I do it weekly because we have a commercial facility and I can't afford major issues. So, but for a hobbyist, I mean, for $40, $50 a month to test to protect your investment, it's crazy not to put that investment into it. I mean, it's absolutely nuts.
This is a really good point from Corey, who's at White Corals over in Europe. And he's also, he might be the only, but he's certainly one of the people developing products for NIOS and ATI. And he says that there's always copper going into your system in some form, especially in dry food. So yeah, dry food, like Akari pellets, man, they have so much copper in them. Like most salts have copper in it. So I think he makes a good point that if you have fish, if you have a mixed reef, you're a hobbyist, you probably don't need to dose copper unless you've got a crazy huge fuge or like a scrubber that's really pulling stuff. You're probably getting it in. And this kind of goes like with what you've experienced with selenium, Chris. Like Calanus is super full of selenium. Like a lot of these traces, there's other forms and sources of it besides dosing it. And if you've already got fish and you've got good diet, like iodine's in nori, right? You probably still need to dose iodine because it's so rapidly uptaken, but there's a lot of inputs of all of these ions constantly. which is also why ICP is important. If you're overfeeding your Hikari, oh, maybe copper will spike too. I've never seen that, but it could happen, so that's a good point.
Copper levels in a natural seawater, from what I remember, it's 9 parts per billion. And that's very minute. That's not even a therapeutic dose to take care of ick in your system, and I've gone as high, not intentionally, as 14 to 16 parts per billion, which is getting to be scary for me. And I had no ill effects from it. I just noticed that the algae was growing like crazy on the scrubbers. And ova in the wild systems, the ova ends up going absolutely ape shit when you have too much copper in your water. But that is, copper is 100% a necessity in a reef environment. Even though it's scary, you gotta know what you're doing. You gotta be careful. I mean, I add a drop at least once a week of pure copper sulfate to every one of my systems, which is enough to treat 2,300 gallons. And it takes, ICP tests always come back between, most of the time they come back between like 6 parts per billion to 11, 12 parts per billion. And I'm perfectly satisfied with that because I know it's there for the zooxanthellae, the coralline, the nuisance algae that grow in the scrubber, all that stuff, But something I wanted to touch on that you were mentioning about an algae scrubber producing all these negative things that can be produced by a scrubber, but there's also stuff that's not talked about, the positive things that are produced by some of those algae as well. So you actually get really good beneficial compounds produced by a lot of that algae as well. But it, like you said, there's more that aren't beneficial than they are, but combating it with activated carbon and ozone is definitely, I recommend carbon over the ozone for any hobbyist, but with a scrubber, you got to run carbon.
I think that the only thing is then, like, let's say you're right, there's good compounds and bad being produced. If you're still running carbon, you're taking the good out too. So it's like, maybe you just end up canceling it out and you get your nutrient reduction. But I think there needs to be controlled experiments on this because obviously the scientific studies out there are one type of turf algae on one reef and one controlled study. And I'm sure there's multiple different species of turf and other species of algae that grow in our systems. And it's going to be different in every system. And I think that things like the new Organo MS test from Christoph at Oceamo, this now can allow us to test it. It shows the organic compounds, at least a lot of them that are being produced. So I'll probably set up, I guess I need to set up a scrubber on something to do some before and afters. I think that'd be pretty fun. Look at the microbiome and the organic chemistry. So yeah, but I don't know. I don't think we know. I think we can argue all day back and forth, but there's no way to prove either of us right because we don't have data. And I think it's different for every system. You have a big sample size with a lot of tanks.
And we don't have the money to actually go through funding to do the controls and all that other stuff. I mean, that's the thing, you need something fairly large with multiple control or multiple systems so you can see the differences between everything and how everything is reacting in each of those systems to actually get the data we need. I don't have the money. And science really needs to get on board with all that because, if they say the oceans are dying, we need to understand why and we need to understand how to combat it. And I'm afraid that, science hasn't pushed the issue enough because the ocean is so vast and, but if you don't learn now, it's going to be too late someday.
Yeah, I think that'll be something we talk about with Carrie and Jamie a lot.
Jamie, yes.
Yeah, that'll be a very good conversation as well. We will go to the people at the forefront of conservation talking about these things. So that'll be a good one.
So excited.
Yeah, my problem with that one, I don't think we'll have enough time. That's like a 4-hour. That needs to be deep, but we'll do our best.
We'll do our best. Listen, Jamie's been doing this for a long time. Carrie's been doing this for a long time. I think we can probably put it all into an hour segment and get the point across and enjoy it.
We're going to talk really a lot. Fast.
I can do that.
Yeah. Here's another question I just missed, also from Corey. So wouldn't a trickle filter push nitrifiers to compete with coral for the easier to use nitrogen sources and then leave the nitrate? Yeah, probably. I mean, I think so. At least the ammonia they would be uptaking. They'd be like I think the ideal system here you're probably still going to have to dose organic nitrogen in a system where you've got a ton of coral, like a like a wet dry filter is not going to do it alone. The reason I'm interested in a wet dry filter is the potential for heterotrophs to grow to break down DOC. If I can get rid of DOC, I'm fine supplementing nitrogen. And then I think if you're going to have excess nitrates, maybe that's where you implement the anaerobic zone with the media or a deep sand bed, and then you get denitrification, and it's a little cycle. I don't know. It's something to play with, and that's what I hope to do. But yeah.
Well, and and back to DOC, if you don't have a system that has, that doesn't have dead spots where detritus can settle, a lot of times you see detritus is settling behind your rockscape, and you can't even get back to clean it out. If you don't have the ability to, keep that suspended continuously where you can remove it mechanically, you're going to have DOC is going to be there all the time. Now, the trickle filter, like you're saying, is it going to help to keep that in check and keep it from building and building and building? That's going to be interesting to find out. I mean, I know what I do. I use ozone for it, and it's been good. And I just started using ozone a couple of months ago. We can get on that topic at another time.
Yeah, that'll be Can we talk about? This is why we needed a 24-hour stream. Chris and I just we call like once or twice a week and just talk for hours. And we're like, we need to just talk about this stuff. We need to do a good one. Let's see. I think there's a couple other questions I might have missed here. Richard Ross said we're both invested in a mine story. That sounds like Richard Ross.
Yeah.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, science is not going to test we care about. I completely agree, Rich. Acropora says, why did my organic carbon decrease when I removed my roller filter and added a Triton algae filter? So like a pretty big fuge. I would say that probably the fuge itself, it could be that a lot of these species of macroalgae are using a lot of those organic carbon sources, fertilizer pretty much. So maybe it's just balanced out in a way to where I think you're adding carbon to your system too. So if you've got the carbon, that's absorbing a lot of stuff that comes from the macroalgae. That's maybe a smaller chain. You got a skimmer that takes some stuff out, and maybe the algae themselves are absorbing a lot of the stuff from food, so to speak. But that's something else to test, because that's when I had a big argument with Isan. I was like, how the hell does a fuge, how is this not causing issues? Like, how is this not a DOC factor? And he's like, well, I brought NDOC testing to the industry, and I've tested it for 15 years, and it's not caused issues in our 20,000 tanks. I'm like, good point. All right, fair enough, man. So I think it needs to be studied. We don't know why that might be, but Corey. God damn, we gotta have Corey. I wanted to have Corey on. We have to have him on at Christmas time. He said,
dude, we wanted to have everybody on. How many people did we not put on? We had like 75 people that we named, and we had to narrow it down to what, 30 something, 40.
Yeah. Corey has a good point too. He says that maybe there's some bad rolls on the market, and sometimes they can leach things in that can make it so skimmers are less efficient. There you go. I don't know. That's a good point too. Yeah, filter rolls. Have you seen Gaia Reef? He was at Reef Stock in Denver. Have you met him? His name's Will.
No.
Dude, so he made he has this patented design. I want to have him on. Got to have him on too. He's got he's got roller mat replacements for like all of the big brands, and he's got this like completely natural biodegradable microplastic free roller filter. So when your roller filter's done, you go put it like in a compost bin, and there's no microplastics it leaches. It's like cellulose based or something. Kind of cool. I don't know. It's a interesting product. I think he's just now kind of coming up. People say they want us to do it once a quarter, Chris. The 24-hour stream.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
I think twice a year we can do, but once a quarter. That is a lot.
That is a lot. Well, there's something might happen in between the every 6 month 24-hour gig. I think will be interesting to see if we actually can pull that one off too.
Here, how about once a week? We could do once a week.
Yeah, we could do that, or once a month at least.
Yeah.
Something. But
So
not
I think
24 hours.
here's a good thing. So like I say, there was a lot of people that we wanted to have on to talk about. For the 86 people in here right now, who did you want to see us talk to that we didn't get to? Because we've got our next one coming up, and maybe we'll just plan it now and just get it done ahead of time. And then we'll probably do a giveaway with that one. This was we wanted to do one for this one, but as a pretty small it was too hard to organize. But Christmas time, we want to be Reef Santa, so we'll probably do it then. Have a big giveaway with a lot of people. So let us know who you wanted to see. Yeah, Johnny Shin, Poo-Tang, both good people, both good stick people. Yeah. Have you seen Johnny's stuff at all? Thirsty Reefs?
Yeah.
Dude, yeah. My God.
Yeah. There's a
I
lot.
want to go see that thing.
There's a lot of amazing stick people out there, and Joseph Cachet, Adam from Battle, Kenny, Piece of the Ocean, that stuff. I see these posts pop up, and it's just like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, because that was my passion when I started ACI. Was I was just a hobbyist, couldn't afford these frags that were just coming available. Steve Tyree's website was the lineage guy, and you get to go in and read about the lineage of the coral, which was super intriguing to me and super exciting, and I wanted to continue that. We started ACI because I wanted to offer acros at great prices, and turned into this crazy ass huge thing called ACI Aquaculture, and what we are now is pretty amazing. But sticks are the way without sticks, I wouldn't be where I am today. I mean, sticks are definitely my driving force to keep me rolling with keeping corals, because there's always a challenge in certain species.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good stick growers. I mean, there's probably 20 really solid people, and pretty much all of them, they either somehow have not talked to each other, at least some of them that I know about, and a lot of them have really unique stuff the other ones don't. We just need to have like a stick summit. Just get every good acro grower and have like 40 of us on at the same time. Just everyone talking.
We'd never be able to talk. We'd all be talking over top of each other. Come on.
No, I'm excited. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Have you seen John Golfstank?
Yes, I've been. He's like north of me. He's my neighbor practically.
I love that guy. John is an amazing human being. And the first time I saw his tank, I was like, and now he's gotten it dialed in even better. And the video he sent me with some of his corals, some of the stuff that he's gotten, that were overgrown pieces from me, it's just amazing. Some of the colors and growth that he's getting. I mean, he's just one hobbyist. I mean, Steve Weiss. There's so many out there. You say 20, there's probably 100.
They're probably
are amazing stick growers, but a lot of those guys are on the down low. They don't bring attention to themselves. But dude, there's so many people we could talk to about sticks, and LPS too. I mean, gosh.
I'm gonna go up to John's in the next 2 weeks. I told him about the little shipment I'm getting this week, and he's very excited and wants frags of all of it, of course. So I'll have to go bring him some frags. Yeah, another one. Yeah, Underwater Wonders. That's another local shop that also they're like with John. Like that's kind of they're like really next to each other. And see, I've been to a lot. I've not been everywhere, so maybe there are people that are higher quality than even them. But it is the best sticks I have ever seen in my life. Like I went to Top Shelf in Orlando, and I went there 2 weeks later, so I had the direct comparison. And dude, I mean, there's stuff like I think Remy's in here. Remy's been there. I think Josh Weisman from Colorado. Like, God, man, they're doing something. That's where I got the urea dosing from. They were doing that, and I was like, "What the hell are you doing?" And they're like, "Oh." I'm like, "Okay, maybe they have no skimmers. They run UV only, which is pretty interesting. Only UV, no filter socks. They just have a huge, like as big as a UV as they can get in a tank, and then that's about it. They do Captivate, and they had T5s. They switched to Stratton's. So they're flexing now. They've got like 50 of those.
I've heard some really good things about people that switch to Strattons. I think it was John Golf was telling me about him, and he was like,
"You got them too."
I'm blown away. He's like, "I'm blown away with how awesome the Strattons are." And unfortunately, it's not something that's a smart investment for my farm. I mean, you need like 200 of the damn things.
Yeah,
I don't have that kind of cash. I stick with my metal halides and my T5s and change the bulbs out annually.
Dude, Strattons are such a sexy light, though. Like, that's just a beautiful light. Like, I saw them at RAP Orlando. It's a single piece of milled aluminum. It's like the spread is great. You can control each like quadrant of it and have the intensity. So, like, if you've got like stick in the back right of your tank, you turn the back right's par up. Like, what, dude? They're so cool. They're so cool, man. Will I be able to afford one? I don't know, but I really want one.
Well, maybe ATI will be like, you're going to put some content out. We're going to send you one so you can give us some solid feedback, good, bad, ugly. And that's what they should be happy with.
I'm willing to get a Stratton, tramp stamp at this point. All right. I'm willing. I want one so bad. I've wanted one for like 3 years. Email me, salem@novelaquatics.com. Let's figure something out. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess your little studio or your little setup is starting to come together here very soon for you to
Yeah.
do some experiments with some different equipment, and that's pretty exciting. Um, yeah, I'm excited to see what you get and what comes out of it. It's just, there's so much going on, dude. I mean, look at what's going on in the reefing community, and then what you got going on, what we've got going on, and everybody else. It's just never-ending learning, and that's part of the reason why I do this. I mean, if it was boring and I couldn't continue to learn, I would lose interest in a week.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've got my lab all done. So I've got everything I need for microbiology. Got an autoclave, incubator, spectrophotometer, all the equipment. And I've got a fridge full of stuff I isolated, including a few potential coral probiotics. So stuff that could actually be used as a treatment. So I got to test those things. I've got a bunch of coral pathogens. And I've also got, if it's still alive, I've got some zooxanthellae I isolated from hammers. So actual zooxanthellae from these aquacultured hammers that were have been aquacultured for 20 years. So I'm going to be doing a lot of fun stuff there. I got 2 of the home grow kits from Ken. So I'm going to take those, and then my goal is to take like really good strains of like acros, like maybe like Garf Bonsai or something. And then after that, I'm gonna grind them up with a mortar and pestle, and then go put them in there and see what I can grow from the anaerobic portion. Just see what I can grow, and then I'll be like, Ken, go grow it.
Interesting, interesting.
I'm
Well,
excited.
if that species of zooxanthellae is still viable, and you can actually get it culturing and growing again, I would love to get a culture of that so that we can send it to Samantha at Aquaholics Aquaculture and have her add it to her Revive brew.
It doesn't look very alive, but if there's a sink, because it's been in the fridge for like 6 months, so that's not very good. But look.
Hey, I mean, I would start putting some of that in some just normal salt water so you can see if it continues to grow, if you can keep it sterile.
Yeah, no, I've got all my stuff to grow phyto here. I've got some F2, so I'm waiting. I need an RODI unit, which Todd from Champion, God bless him, shout out. He's sending me a new one free of charge to help me out.
Todd's
So once
awesome.
I get that in, I'm gonna start. We're gonna see if this goop. Yeah, it looks like Thai iced tea. Yeah. So this is zooxanthellae, like from a coral, isolated. So let's see if it's alive.
So here's the key with that. Open it up. Does it smell like rotten eggs, or does it smell?
I know it's bad.
Yeah, that's not going to be something that's going to smell good if that's all dead in there. But it'd be awesome if there was just a handful of live cells that you can revive and get it going again.
I mean, here's the thing is even if they're dead, I got a really good protocol for isolating that stuff down in college, so I can just do it again. It's pretty simple. So if I think what it would be, the challenge would be trying to get like stuff from every clade, because like only some corals will uptake some clades of zooxanthellae. So I feel like I'd have to have like a hammer, Acropora, Stylophora, like just try to get a clade isolated from every single species. Then you have like a 20 species blend or something of like the top 20 common corals in the hobby, something like that. I don't know.
I don't think they even know how many species are actually, how many species of zooxanthellae actually exist. There's a lot, and I'm sure there's a lot more than what they thought was originally there. I mean, think about deep water corals. They're probably going to have a different species than anything, in the middle of the column versus the upper column, and how many species are at each level of the ocean because of the light that they're receiving. And that's very interesting because, we get corals like acanthos that are living in 120 feet of water. I'm sure that species is completely different than something that's even 50 feet shallower.
Oh yeah.
So that's going to be. I wish I had the funds. I wish I had the lab. I wish I could do stuff like that. I would rather do that.
You need to get an Acropora pachoni. That's what we need to get stuff. There's the deep water one we need.
But the funny thing is that pachoni was collected in 40 feet of water, which I guess is considered deep for most acros. And actually, I'm going to be getting it back if it's still there. When he goes
Kevin
back,
Berta, we pray you've not killed it.
Yeah, I lost mine, which is sad because I had it for almost a year, and then I had my issues, and that was one of the first ones to go. It was the smoothies. But Tim Kelly said he knows exactly where he collected that colony, or the pieces from that colony, and he's going to go back and try and find it again and get me pieces to send back again, hopefully in the next few months, which would be great because it's a unique, weird piece of coral.
It's cool, man. It looks like a snowflake. It's so awesome.
And it's two-dimensional. It's like the thickness of a credit card, or two credit cards laying on top of each other, and it just
or an ACI Stratton.
I mean, it's a turd brown Acropora with like pale blue tips, and then just toxic neon green polyps on it. But the polyps are like, I mean, I've never seen an acro with polyps so tiny in all my life. I mean, it's like, how do they even pick up anything out of the water column? They're so tiny.
Yeah, it's got to be they're flat to like, because they're deep or there's like a lot of turbidity. I feel like it's to increase their surface area to get more like light, right? It's like they're like a little satellite dish or something. Because yeah, they're probably not eating a lot. I mean, they have kind of few polyps. They're very, it's kind of like Laconi or something. Yeah, it's like sporadic. A low amount of them. So I feel like maybe like a heterotrophic thing is less likely than just they're also brown. That's pretty dense. A lot of density of zooxanthellae, yeah.
Zooxanthellae, exactly. So it's probably got the least amount of corallites of any Acropora that I've seen. I mean, I thought Sahersanoi was always been a fascinating coral for me because the corallites can be like 2 inches long. It's just a stalk with one little polyp at the top, and then there's a couple polyps at the base. It's interesting, is it why they're such a difficult coral for me? Because there's so much less animal density per piece, and that makes them, more, it makes them require more than what a normal acro would require. I don't know. And maybe that's the reason why most of the smoothies are, for me, the more difficult species to propagate. I mean, we've got a decent amount of them, but, all the dense populated corallite and animal, like 1 inch on a milli, you got, couldn't even tell you how many corallites and polyps are. Yeah. And then you got 1 inch of Sahersanoi, and it could just be one polyp with tissue. And that's the part that we don't really know. Why is that the reason why that coral is a little bit more difficult to keep? Because the requirements are just completely different. Yes, I believe that. And what is it? I don't know. And that's something that's fascinating to try and figure out.
And the other kind of rabbit hole is not only just like, do they need this amount of food, this amount of flow because of how many corallites they have? But we've talked about this, and probably Isan and Julian will have some data they can maybe even share later on. But the fact that acros or coral from any different regional locale likely have vastly different like trace element or like chemistry requirements. Like I think the Solomon, I've been talking about this for so long now, but like no shit, the purple monster does not grow. Like maybe you should share like the Solomon Islands ICP data you were talking about. Like that's kind of my thought of why it doesn't grow that fast.
It could be. I mean, I have to go dig that out. I might be able to get that dug out here by the time, in the middle of this. I can probably search through my my ICP results. I can't even remember when that was, a year ago, so I should be able to go back to that. But yeah, that'd be very interesting. I know iron levels were just elevated like you wouldn't believe. Manganese levels were just elevated like you wouldn't believe. I mean, people are like, especially Chris Wood was like, whoa, that's like 4,000% higher than other seawater samples that were tested on the iron level. It's just insane amounts. But we're talking about Solomon Islands too, which has got new islands popping up every like 10 years. They're just a new one breaks the surface. I mean, I think right now there's an active volcano in the Solomon that's going to be creating a new island within the next, handful of years, because it's literally only 100 feet below the surface. How long is it going to take for that to build and build and build and build?
And I feel like that's
the water every day.
That's got to be why a lot of the Solomon stuff dies, because I feel like it's just drastically different trace element concentrations than like what the set points are that we keep stuff at, which is like based off of what Indonesia and Australia, I believe, is what Triton made this initial set points. And I think they're very similar between people. So we'll have to ask them. But yeah, I think that probably we need biotopes. We need to go to the Solomons, take 30,000 ICP samples and have another set point for that region. and then we have the Solomon set points we chase. So that's probably, I bet if we put a purple monster, like a Tyree purple monster, in a tank like that, I bet it'd grow fast. I bet it just somehow adapted through aquaculture, but it's just, feed me, please. It's just struggling.
Speaking of the PM, I was super excited about the growth and how well that coral was doing for me. And I was talking to Keith, and I had somebody come over, and he's like, dude, I'll give you $500 for that little 1/4-inch nub. I'm like, no, the first frag goes to Keith Berkelheimer, because he's the one that sent me the OG lineage piece, and he ended up losing his. So I'm like super excited about mine. It's puddling. It's got 3 big branches growing on it. I was getting ready to just cut those 2 big ones, the 2 biggest ones off, and start new colonies and for other systems. I go in there on Monday and the damn thing's receding. I'm like, what the hell am I doing wrong? Everything else is doing good. So I started cutting it. I put it in another system. I'm like, okay. But then the nub is actually looking like it's okay, that I cut it off of where it had recession. It stopped because I used iodine to dip it. And, I always use iodine. Iodine's my go-to, because if there's something, that needs to be sterilized, the iodine takes care of it. And it also removes if there's any pests, but I couldn't find any pests. It's a purple monster. If everybody could grow it, everybody would have it. And I've been struggling with that coral for 2 years after getting my first piece from Keith. I was just proud of the damn thing growing really well in like the last 8 months. And now it's like, son of a bitch, you're doing it again.
Yeah, here's a good point for Millie. So Millie, or what am I saying, Millie? I read the word Millie in the chat from Remy. So Remy has a Solomon Island biotope he started making. He's got rock from Solomon Islands. My thought was maybe like using some black sand, or like think about like the dirted tanks in freshwater. You don't have to add traces because it all comes from the substrate. So maybe there's a way we look at that ICP result and reverse engineer it and throw in like different potting soil and stuff, and then it just comes from the sand. Like maybe like pumice and some of the like volcanic rocks would help buffer it. I don't know. In terms of the purple monster, I think Putang is in here. I think he's got one of the Tyrees. How is yours doing? What type of par do you have it out? What type of growth do you see it out of if you're in this chat? We'll let him respond. And then we've got about 2 minutes left, and we're going to have Luca and Tulio on to talk about some lighting. So if you like what you've seen so far, I'm going to send a link in the chat. We don't have super chats because these are new company, but there's a way to buy merchandise on here. You can donate. You can do monthly stuff, and also you should subscribe to the YouTube channel and ACI's YouTube channel as well, which I'll also send in the chat here. Or
at ACI Aquaculture.
Yep.
If you just punch in ACI Aquaculture, I got so many YouTube videos out there that I've done on everybody else's YouTube channel. It doesn't pop up. You have to put at ACI Aquaculture to pop up our YouTube page, which is this is probably the first time it's really being used the way we want it to be used.
Yeah, like it, share it, buy some merch, donate. Everything helps a lot. And we're gonna have the next topic starting here in about 2 minutes. And
super excited for this one.
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty good. After Tulio and Luca, who do we have? After Tulio and Luca, we will have Chris Wood to talk about trace elements, chemistry, all of that.
Yes.
And my God, I think I got my wish. Corey, who represents ATI, says they will pay for a Stratton tramp stamp. So it looks like I'm getting branded, people. Wow.
I got an office tank for setting up. No.
Josh, I think we might be able to make that work. I'll be down there for Rap Orlando again next year, so we can have something candle lit, perhaps. We're going to make this work.
I'm hoping I get the tank actually running. I've had the tank now for about 8 months, and I still haven't set the damn thing up. But I also was being patient with my rebooted system to make sure it was where I needed it to be before corals really went into it, and it's going to be tied to it, so I have to do water changes.
You have what? It's like a 300 gallon, right?
It's like a 300-gallon tank that's going in the office. It's going to have an amazing aquascape that was made by Kevin Berger from Top Shelf that we got a handful of years ago. It's been cooking in that same system, getting purpled up. It's looking spectacular. It's time to transfer it over, get the sand, and get that thing rolling, and put my sticks in and start building my wife's acanthophilia garden back up.
Oh, there you go.